to work. Oh, here we go. Here it comes.
Yeah. What's up, man?
Living the dream.
Big day?
Every day is a big day.
It's funny because that's one of the subjects I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, man. Every day is a big day. No, it's a good day. It's a good day. Day after tax season, just finished for 2018. You're already in 2019. The game goes on.
Shit, I have to do that. Didn't do it yet.
You file for an extension.
Yeah, every time.
Where are you? Where are you based?
Montreal in Canada.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah. So welcome to the Smith Vibes podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, cheers. I wanted to start this off with a little bit how I got to know you through online, and then through how we started conversing about a year ago. Pretty much back in the days when I started CrossFit, Carl's always been the guy that I was going to see his stuff online and try to learn everything step by step on the gymnastic base. And Carl was one of the guys who was putting pretty much all the content step by step in all the same videos, and it was pretty much the longest and the most valuable stuff. I actually learned how to do all my variations of rope climbs through your videos when you were doing it outside at San Francisco CrossFit, if I believe. And about a year ago, I reconnected with Carl because I was having to shift into my business, and I was putting it all into like my business and stopped doing working for other people. And I reached out after a travel I did, and one of his advice was how to create the beginner's heart. And it's because I was actually super aware of, I was hyper aware. That's what you realized, and yeah, so that's how we got together.
That's crazy. That's crazy. It's funny. I just remembered the day that I told you that. I think I just got off the plane. I had flown in to San Francisco back home from Singapore, and I have vivid memories of sending you the messages. So that's so cool. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's awesome. And since then, it's been a roller coaster of emotions, and as many positive and negative ones, but always looking forward to make it through. So let's go right into let's actually talk about the beginner's heart. Let's go into that. Let's dig deep.
Yeah, I think the gist of it is that the beginner's heart is this attitude that you're never going to arrive wherever you think you're going. That's it. So if you have an attitude or an approach to something where you come with the mindset of, I'm here to learn, I'm open to new things, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to do my best to navigate the waters ahead of me, then I'm going to be fine. And hopefully, if one exercises the beginner's heart on a daily basis, what happens is that over time, there are certain areas of your life where you start to get on the path towards mastery. And once again, mastery is the place where you will never arrive, but it's a path that when you navigate it, it starts giving you tools that unconsciously you begin to use, and it just opens up a whole new range of awareness. And this, it doesn't matter if it's mentally, emotionally, or physically. It happens in every aspect of our life. And I think this is something that I was reminded of, actually, and maybe that's why I shared it with you when I was in Singapore teaching some seminars, and I attended a few yoga classes with a friend of mine. And she just kept saying, you know what, Carl, every time you come back to the mat, you just start with a beginner's heart. And I was like, yeah, the beginner's heart, this theme keeps coming back over and over in my life. And that's where the realization that I had in that moment was that I can only work with what I've got. And that's the gist of it. It's be open to being a beginner, to learning new things, and to simply realize that every day you're starting over.
And kind of using it as your advantage.
Yeah, it's not even using it, it's just letting it be what it is. It's trying to not control everything.
That's hard. That's like one of the hardest aspects of life.
Hmm.
Crazy. And are you still traveling a lot and doing all these seminars? I mean, um, you've been quite doing it a lot.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm just here, I'm working on my new travel schedule. It looks kind of like this, I'm like mapping out what the US looks like. I put little numbers and I show where I'm going to be flying. Uh, you're constantly mapping things out. So yeah, I'm traveling a lot. The travel is probably as intense as it used to be. The only difference is now the way that I'm thinking about a lot of my business is that when I'm traveling, I have an opportunity to connect with people in person, which is a completely different experience than connecting over video or text message or on social media. And it's an opportunity to get to share what people are feeling, what the vibe of the people is, and for them to get to experience where I'm standing and where I'm currently at in my current evolution. And it's just a way of really getting a good sense of what the front line looks like within my business, within teaching movement, within teaching people about brand and business development, which is something that I'm heavily focused on right now, and continuing to develop my company, which is a media and digital learning platform. And that's what the travel is right now, and it's still exciting. It's still new, and I've been doing it for almost 15 years, but it's still cool.
When did you actually start traveling all around the world and doing the seminar tour?
Well, I started traveling when I was 17, so that is 20 years ago now. I just turned 37, so 20 years ago.
Wow.
But yeah, then I was traveling for school and trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and I spent a lot of time, just traveling through Europe and Asia. And in 2005, 2006 is when I started traveling around the US. And then 2007, 2008, I took my seminars international. And that's when it all started. So that was 11 years ago.
And across all those years, like where was that threshold where you started building that experience of like, okay, I'm not stressed anymore doing this. I'm not like I'm more into like a developing situation.
No, I'm stressed.
Oh, that's good to know.
Of
You are?
course. Of course. Yes, of course. Just because it looks easy doesn't mean it's easy.
Right. And
One
what
of the
stresses
one
you out about it?
well, um, have you ever tried juggling?
Yes.
Okay. So, juggling one ball can be tricky. You're like, oh, my right hand is better than my left hand. So that can be an amount of stress. You try two balls and you're like, okay, the pattern is the same. I just need to make sure that they are timed the right way. And then you start juggling three balls and you realize the pattern is the same, but now I have to wait a little bit more, be more patient. I have to pay attention to different things. I have to create new structures and program new ways of moving my hands and observing the balls. And then all of a sudden you start juggling four balls and you're like, wait a second, the pattern completely changes. I need to regress now to learning
Wow.
how to juggle with one hand, juggle with the other hand, and now combining these patterns together. And that's what it feels like. You're constantly trying to add a new ball that you're juggling. And with that, you have to create space and room for yourself to constantly regress, because regression is progression. And being able to make those decisions are stressful. Any change, any transition is stressful. And it's the one who can manage stress or take the most stress is the one that is able to grow the fastest or furthest. So the biggest thing that I work on is managing my stress levels, is how intense am I making my life? And is that intensity the right dose of intensity that's going to push me where I want to go? And this happens in my business, this happens in my relationships, this happens in my training. And that's what I think is part of this road or path to mastery, that if we are willing to have a beginner's heart, going back to where we started, it allows us to regress without freaking out, without feeling like we're falling back. We're actually falling forward. And that's where the stress is. Anytime you see the transitions, you're going to feel it.
And when you, and is that created by the evolution you want to create through the seminars, and what you teach is like the better ways and all that? So like you're always living through that expectations?
No, there's no expectations actually. There's never any expectations. There are only positive impacts and outcomes that you set as an intention, but without the need of having to meet that,
Oh, 100%. Right.
which is important because it's what allows you to really ask yourself the question whether what you are experiencing, thinking, or you believe is really true. And when you can change what you believe according to the observation that you're seeing, your thoughts change, your feelings change, your approach changes. And now, like you were saying, for yourself, a roller coaster of emotions actually becomes something that is a little predictable and that you can enjoy. It's kind of like if you were to get on a roller coaster and you know that this roller coaster is crazy, but you had no seatbelt, no protection, and only you holding on is what's going to keep the train, you're probably going to be freaking out. Created a security system that allows you to be strapped in. Now you can let go of your arms and actually enjoy the ride.
Right. What was the, like, your, across all these years, like what has been the best experience you had? Is there one in particular that you could kind of point out?
No, there's no best or worst experiences. Every single one, the highs and the lows, have all been part of the whole body of work. And this is something that people ask me all the time. They ask me, hey, what chapter is your favorite of your book? What episode is your favorite of your podcast? And I'm like, I don't have a favorite. They're
Right.
all different, and it's the body of work itself that I am in appreciation of. And appreciation meaning not just gratitude, but the ability to see the value that exists within the entire body of work and the opportunity of growth that exists within it. And this is just like if you were to buy a home, you would hope that this home that you bought appreciates over time. The same thing happens with my craft. I see it as a body of work that I've invested in,
Right.
and I hope to see it appreciate over time. If I only focus on the micro, if I only focus on what the flooring looks like in my house, or what the electrical system looks like, I'm only focusing on the micro. I need to think about the whole land, the whole building, the functionality of the space, the purpose that that space serves, the people that are able to live and inhabit that home, how they're able to interact, what resources we have,
And
and
I
so on.
and I think you pointed out pretty good, like just by example, your podcast. At some point, what's cool with podcasts is anybody could kind of go back into time, and they listen to your most recent one, and they could go back and listen to your first one, and they could kind of travel through there. And maybe it's episode 3 that just like created something for them, and that's where they catched it the best, right? So like you're right, you're right when you say that, like the appreciation might not necessarily be the same for everybody as well, and it's something, piece of content that you're giving to
Mhm.
everybody, because it's gratitude, right? So
Exactly. And I think that's the beauty, is that from every single episode, for example, of the podcast, I have gotten something out of it of value, and I have been able to identify a skill or a trait in myself that I can now work on.
And yeah, so let's go back to stress, because I like you just said when we started that you're pretty busy and every day is a busy day. You seem to manage your stress really well, like just the way that we're conversating and on everything your projects are. And I feel that we're like in a world right now where everything needs to be fast, and it's like the trend to be saying that, oh, I'm so stressed, right? So like everybody's stressed at some point. How do you manage that? How do you like? What's your regards in others? How can you help or others around you to like kind of like calm them down and find strategies?
Well, as I said earlier, everyone is different when it comes to stress. Everyone feels it different, experiences it different. It comes in different forms.
Yeah.
For me, I am the one that puts the stress on myself because I have spent my whole lifetime creating a lifestyle that allows me to do what I want, when I want, with who I want, and how I want. Which means that now if I want to grow, I need to create structures around myself that actually put stress on me. I need to stretch myself and think, okay, in terms of my understanding of a concept, what can I do to really challenge this? Oh, maybe I have to put out a podcast. Maybe I have to create a new seminar. Maybe I should create this new product. Maybe I should produce a new service. Maybe I should, whatever it may be. And you start creating these new initiatives that once you put them on paper and you start to implement them, you begin to stretch who you are. And that stretch is the stress.
Right. So being creative and have all this imagination, like it's kind of like a blast of ideas, and that's like you have to blend everything kind of together, right?
Right. And
Yeah.
now the flip side of that is, let's say I want to build a multi-million-dollar business, okay? And I am eager to build a team. Now, all of a sudden, as soon as you start incorporating more people with different skill sets and different talents, you have to start managing relationships. And if you've been in any relationship with anyone in your life, whether it's biological family or a spouse or friends or coworkers, you know that at some point in time, you've experienced some friction, some resistance, some discomfort, and that is a level of stress. So how do you manage that? Well, that's where you need to learn how to communicate. In order to be able to communicate more effectively, you need to develop some self-awareness. You can develop self-awareness by simply being in a state of reflection. You can practice meditation. You can have an exercise regimen that you follow, whether it's doing handstands, CrossFit, yoga, gymnastics, kettlebells, whatever it may be. And within that, practicing paying 100% attention to what your body is feeling, what feelings are coming to you, what thoughts are behind that, and what belief systems exist behind those thoughts. And then reverse engineering that to reframe your story. So your approach to your movement, which eventually translates into your self-awareness and your ability to communicate with the world, allows you to manage those relationships. So, and this happens with anything that you do, whether you're building something or you're trying to connect with people. It all comes down to basic human behavior and giving yourself space and time in your schedule and your structure to start to practice that.
Sometimes you could actually do more by doing less.
Yeah. This is the mentality that we're trying to instill in people. And when I say we, is myself and anyone I work with, is that we have to go from the mentality that exists in many of us, which is if we choose, we lose, to if we choose, we win. Because having focus on one thing is what's going to allow you to have it act as a catalyst to affect change in everything else that you do.
And how did that affect you across your years of training as an athlete versus like actually as a coach versus an athlete versus a person, all these different like segmentations? Do you go back to becoming the person when you train, and stop like thinking about, oh, I'm a coach, and you're constantly thinking in your mind, oh, what should I do? Are you kind of like letting yourself be and letting yourself coached by what you need to do?
So the word needs
Hmm.
are coming up here, and I think one of the interesting things about coaching is, and this is something that I've experienced, is twofold. Is number one, the number one thing that coaches struggle with is to be heard. They feel like they're not being heard. No, they feel, which means they probably are thinking something in relationship to that feeling, and they probably have a belief system in the back. Now, the other side of the coin is that most coaches are not aware of what the actual definition of coaching really is, which is helping people get their needs met. So, as a coach, whether it's physical, executive, in business, or in any other aspect of life, we need to understand what are the needs of our clients, our students, and how can we help those needs get met. And I, as a coach, am not going to meet those needs. I'm going to create a space or going to share some information or show you the tools to help you get yourself met.
Right. And do you get coached by other people?
All the time. All the time. I'm constantly seeking out advice. I have mentors. I have financial coaches, business coaches. I have movement coaches. I'm constantly receiving information, and if I'm
Who's
not receiving from people, then I'm either watching YouTube on YouTube University, or you're reading books, audiobooks, podcasts. You're constantly consuming uh, insight.
And in the physical aspect, like you said that you had a movement, you've been being coached by movement. Um, who's training you right now? Who's like teaching you, coaching you, or giving you advice for your training?
So at this current moment,
Yeah.
there's no physical coaching that's happening. There's only coaches that hold space for me to
Okay.
actually practice, because I dread physical training. I dread it. Like, it's something that it's at the very bottom of my priority list,
Right.
and I have to bump it up. So I have people who keep me accountable, and I go to a gym where I'm surrounded by coaches that love what they do physically, and they're able to talk to me in a way that allows me to hear what it is that I need, whether I'm aware of it or not.
And is that CrossFit? Is that a specific gymnastics training, conditioning, or
It's a gym.
oh, lost you. Oh, there you go.
Yep.
Yeah, I got you.
It's a CrossFit gym that I go to, but it's not about CrossFit as prescribed. It's more so as, are you coming in? Are you moving? Are you moving in a way that feels good to you? Is it technically sound? Are you pushing yourself a little bit? And did you take your medicine today?
I like that you said it's not the CrossFit as prescribed, because sometimes it could be kind of intimidating when your stress levels or when your head isn't 100% there, and you kind of see this massive workout or like um, I feel that it's important that sometimes in anybody's life to kind of like step back down and just like move properly with some intent, but not necessarily with that high intensity and that craziness that we've seen in the past.
Hmm. Yeah, and intensity can be tweaked in many different ways. So yeah, intensity can be contextual.
Yeah, it has because there's not much difference between intensity and volume when you think about it.
There's a lot of difference, but the intensity, meaning the stress that exists within
Yeah.
one's body, uh, sometimes needs different types of intensity. For example, if right now my training regimen is kind of low in volume, I need to increase the intensity in terms of the volume or times I'm going into the gym or practicing. If right now I practice every day, but my intensity is always at 50, 60%, maybe I need to increase my intensity to 70, 80% 2, 3 times a week. And asking ourselves those questions on how are we going to do this, I think is the most important uh, part of addressing intensity.
And you said that it was at the bottom of your priority, but um, is it still something that you know that it makes you feel good and makes you keep going every day and kind of gives you that mental break as well?
100%. For me, it has to be fun. It has to be attractive and cool. It has to be interesting. It has to have some kind of relationship with other people. There needs to be an element of accountability. Me meeting with someone or seeing someone or telling them, "Hey, I'm going to be there." It needs to be on my calendar.
Really? Huh.
If it's not on my calendar, I'm not doing it
Right.
because I'm not interested in it. I'm done. You know what I mean?
When did that happen? When did that shift happen, kind of?
That probably happened like 15 years ago.
Jeez, okay.
Yeah, I'm only in the fitness industry because I happen to have some knowledge about the concepts that people need, but I am like patient zero. I'm the biggest problem when it comes to physical practice.
Huh, interesting. And what are the other things that you're kind of working on if that's not like on your priority right now? How many, like you said, you had businesses, and what are all of these? Like their seminars, their
Well, for me, what's the most
yeah,
interesting is uh, delivering this message to people that here's your one life that you have right now.
yeah,
There are things that you're going to love to do. There are things that you're not going to love to do as much. The question is the things that you choose to do, whether you love them or not, are they worth living for?
right.
And simply being able to ask yourself that question, I think, is important, because otherwise we get stuck in the rat race or in the structure that society says we should have, or our culture is leading us towards. And to realize that we can make change if we want to or need to. And that's what I want to encourage people to do. And then I want to do that in a way that is coming out through media, for example. So the podcast is one medium, social media is another medium, maybe making movies is another medium, writing more books is another medium, developing teams around physical training and practice with people that are excited and know way more than I do about physical training, so I can be a part of that. And then allowing that to be the catalyst for people to change the way they think, the way they look at the world, and ultimately the way they behave and act in this world and show up.
And is there any people that work with you on staff? Like, do you have like a team of employees or partners that are implicated
Yeah,
in all of that?
for sure, for sure. We have people in the training department when it comes to the footwear and apparel with Strike Movement. Of course, there's the founder and CEO, and then there are the investors and everyone that works for the company. And me being part of the company as part of the investment group and being an ambassador at the same time and doing strategic business development around the brand. The mission is always the same across the board. And then the same thing happens with Freestyle, which is a media company. And as I said earlier, a digital learning platform, which what I foresee is that if I continue to go down this path, within 10 years, it becomes a venture group or a venture machine, which would have a conglomerate or an ecosystem of different businesses and brands that I would be either involved in as an operator or as a creative or as someone that is through the team in our company facilitating the acquiring of that company, or us absorbing the company in some way, simply as a way to multiply this message, which is getting people to pause for a second, pay attention to what they're doing, and then ask themselves, is this worth it?
Man, that's hard work, man. That's a lot of years of building something. That's I think that you're the one of the proofs that the process is very important and that the long term is the win, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious. It's something that I haven't heard. Maybe you've talked about it in other podcasts, but has nutrition been something that you've ever struggled or embraced?
Yes. So I'll give you an example. It's 11:45 here or something. Right
Yeah.
before getting on the podcast, I had exactly 7 minutes to get some food in me, and I had to go in the kitchen and eat standing. Uh, and I had, a few eggs and a chicken leg, and I realized, oh, I don't have any greens, so I just kind of threw myself into like a little piece of fruit, and I'm just like, okay, this is not high level nutrition right here. So yeah, I struggle a lot.
Did you try, are you like one of those persons that like eats like all of the time kind of that way, or you've tried across the years all these different trends, or like just testing it for like for the knowledge of feeling it?
Once again, I've not been interested enough to do it. I think that for me, what I've realized is that I need someone in that department to tell me what to do. Hey, Carl, it's 6 a.m. Hey, Carl, it's 11. Hey, Carl, it's 1:30. Here's your meal. Make sure you eat. Because I can go a whole day without eating and not even realize.
You forget about
And
it.
then, yeah, and then people are like, Carl, you look so damn skinny. I'm like, oh, yeah, I forgot to eat.
Jeez, is that something from like the gymnastics world, like, or it's just like yourself?
It's just myself because
Yeah.
I'm so my brain is so focused on other things that unless this like the basics like
Hmm.
eating and training are on the calendar, I just don't do it.
So if you had a bunch of junk food in the fridge, you'd probably eat junk food.
Yes, I would.
Damn, that looks awesome.
Yeah, yeah. It's awful. It's one of my biggest demons that I'm currently I have to fight.
And I bet you've been around like a bunch of people that are really hardcore into it.
For sure.
And
And
how's
that's
your,
wonderful. When I'm around them, I'm just like, oh, eat whatever they're eating. That's fine.
yeah. Yeah, I feel that that's not, like some of those people that are super specific and they find everything where they go. You're just like, yeah, let's go to Whole Foods.
Yeah, I mean, I love Whole Foods. We shop at Whole Foods. We mix it up, of course, and we try to eat super healthy here at home, which we technically do. My wife's a beast when it comes to cooking, meal prep, the whole thing. But when we're both super busy and maybe there is no meal prep, all of a sudden I'm scavenging and I'm kind of like, oh, well, it's time to eat, I guess. And then I prepare myself some, crappy meal like I just had before coming on the podcast here with you.
I'm sorry about that.
No, it's not. It's not you. This is my problem,
Yeah,
and this is an area where I need to improve on. And
right.
it's just a matter of me being willing to carve out the time to do that. And I think that's one of the big problems is that we all have excuses of for why we're not doing certain things that we know are important.
And aside to your business stuff and everything that you're developing, what are the things that you enjoy the most that are not related to work?
I enjoy hanging out with my wife and with my kid and walking my dog and sipping on some coffee and enjoying a good book or listening to a good podcast or watching a good movie. Those are things that I enjoy
And when
doing.
you listen to podcasts, you try to listen to something that has nothing to do with your field of expertise.
Yeah, the question is, what is my field of expertise?
Yeah, that's curious.
Yeah, right.
It's
So
kind
if you
of
think about it, people may perceive me as the guy that teaches muscle ups or handstands for CrossFitters. Cool, that's great. That's the perception. My field of expertise, if I had to say one thing that I'm interested in, is in human behavior and how we express our behavior and what consequences come from that behavior. And not within our lifetime, but within the larger span of humanity. That's what I'm interested in. And, the last podcast I listened to was with Conan O'Brien. Um, so it was with comedians.
So you saw, and you must always be like kind of studying the way that they're expressing themselves as well, right? And bringing
all the time. Yeah, the way I see myself is I see myself as a comedian, especially with these seminars. Like one of the reasons I continue to do the seminars is because when I go and do my seminars, I am testing new material. The reason I do a podcast like this is because I get to test new material, and I get questions that are fed my way that force me to think about the next thing.
I like that. Wow, that's amazing. That's a good way of thought, though.
Hmm.
So when you do all these things, do you consider your like even in it like a day or going, do you consider yourself more as a, you said that you were really onto like a schedule. So do you compartment like what you need to do, or are you like a straightforward workaholic and just like go through like long days and stop whenever you're tired?
What I've learned over the last decade is that I'm a great starter. I'm a terrible finisher.
Hmm.
So one of my structures that I need to create in my life is the ability to start new things and then hand it over. So it's packaging it. An example of packaging something would be like, okay, I've been on the road now teaching these seminars. I've learned a couple things. Now, in order for me to move on from this, I need to package it and pass it on. I'm going to write a book about it, and there you have it. Pass that on. Now I can eliminate that from my field of vision and just have it be part of my greater ecosystem, and now focus on developing the next thing. So for me right now, let's say in 2014 I released a book. The book comes out, it becomes a New York Times bestseller. Great, that's a whole like other world. I realize, okay, we need to also have this book material in digital format, so let's work on that. Okay, if that's going to live on forever, you have to build a team around that, so let's build a team around that. And I've spent the last 3 to 5 years trying to build a team around closing that loop for myself as I've been practicing this new material for the last 5 years, and now gearing up to release the next book, which I'm currently writing, which is going to have nothing to do with the original book, but still contains very similar principles and ideas as the first one had.
And yeah, so that means like in like a day in the life of Carl, what does that like mean? Does it mean that you kind of like do you work on weekends?
Yeah.
Do you take these times off and like obligate yourself for your family and actually like the things that we're saying, like everything that you enjoy, right?
Hmm.
Is there a time for
Yeah,
that?
so yeah, you try to carve that out.
Mm.
The problem is that when you are constantly trying to push yourself to the next level, it's very easy to be like, well, why don't I just work this weekend and then the following one, and then I'll take the next one off, and then all of a sudden you get into this loop of never taking a day off,
Right.
and that becomes a problem. So what I've forced myself to do in my calendar is to work every other weekend.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And then try within the weekends that I'm not working, at least giving myself a half day off where I can just do nothing, meaning I can try to feel bored for a second.
That's good though. That means that at home, well, your support team, your family is very supportive on those choices, right?
Extremely. I mean, this is the foundation that we built with the relationship with my wife, and how we interact with our kid, and the way that we are building together. And this is just kind of part of the game. And if you think about parents, they don't get a day off on the weekend. That's when they work the hardest.
Right. Huh. Um, I don't know. I always ask 3 to 4 questions at the end, but these may be a little vague because these are specific answers. Well, let's see what we got. So what would be Carl's theme song? Like when you get into a room,
Mm.
or somewhere, and then everybody sees you arrive. They hear the song in their head. What's is there something that comes to your head, to your mind?
Yeah, I guess the one that's coming to my mind right now is James Brown's "I Feel Good."
Oh, that's the first one.
Mm.
Awesome.
There
So
you go.
you like that kind of music?
That's my favorite.
Oh, nice. And second question. That was easy. People that actually struggle on that one.
Yeah, or anything that maybe like Fats Domino. Any of his songs are great too.
Cool.
Yeah,
We've been born into the wrong years.
or the right ones where we can
Yeah.
appreciate what was.
Yeah, right. So, who is your favorite female athlete of all time, and why?
Mm. Female athlete of all time and why? That's a great question. I haven't thought about this in a while, but I'll tell you a team of female athletes that inspired me was in 1996 when the Olympics happened in Atlanta, and the American women's team in gymnastics won the all around. And the whole Carrie Strug dramatic landing, breaking her ankle, and being carried out, and then getting the gold medal. Although that was very cliche and uh, it was of course pumped up by the media, it was exciting to see a group of women who were fierce leaders that competed at such a high level and were able to really come around and do what they did. On the other end, now in a more current time, I would say Simone Biles is pretty amazing. I just relate to her story of being a foster kid and then growing up with her grandparents, who now she calls mom and dad, and being such an amazing athlete and competitor. So she's amazing.
Who is that? What
Simone
sport?
Biles, yeah,
What sport?
gymnastics,
Okay, I'll
yeah.
have to Google the that Atlanta Olympics. That's
Yeah,
fascinating.
check that out. Yeah, that Olympics actually was the Olympics that kept me in gymnastics for another 4 years.
Nice. Um, Next question. This is a hard one. People have a hard time with this one, but you've been traveling a lot, so it might be a little easier. What would be your dream country of choice to live in outside of the country that you're actually living in?
For how long?
Forever.
Forever?
Yeah.
The thing is, nothing is forever. This too shall pass, my friend.
How about if you would have to move there for a year, let's say?
I think I would go to Tokyo, Japan.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Why is that?
It's the most different city culture that I've been able to experience in traveling the world, in terms of how they think, operate, the architecture, the layout of the country, the way that they see. That's the one I think would bring.
Oh, I lost you there.
In addition, they have.
Oh, I
Can you
got you.
still hear me?
Yeah, yeah, I have you. Sorry, I lost you for a second.
Where did I leave off?
So you said it was the most different cultural ever compared to like what other places?
Yeah, Tokyo, Japan is experience with the biggest difference: culture, thinking, architecture,
It's
at
pretty
the
clean
world, and
too.
that has history. It's extremely clean, but it's not even the cleanliness. It's the way that they operate and being efficient and effective, but at the same time, in the basic policies, like they still have. I believe they brought that back. They have. I don't know if you've seen the movie with the dolphins in the cove, where they go and they kill and massacre all these dolphins. They have certain things that are really terrible, and then there's things that have happened to them that have been really terrible, like atomic bombs being dropped on them, and these are things that transform a country.
Jeez, that's massive. That's crazy. I'll have to go there one day. And my last question, and then we can just go off from there. If you would be an actor, or if you'd have to play a certain role into a movie, what would that be? Who would it be?
If I had to play a role in a movie, I mean, I'm as white as it gets, but it's a very contemporary figure that is a symbol of inclusivity and freedom. Interesting to portray to some degree.
Sorry, I lost you, but I recorded. So thanks a lot, Carl. So where can people find you? Where can they reach you out? Like Facebook, Instagram, your website, maybe?
Yeah, you can find me anywhere on social media, just Carl Paoli, and then online you can find me at freestyleconnection.com. And anyone who reaches into this and to support in any kind of way I can, I'm always eager.
Cool, man. We'll have you back for sure. We just
I would love that.
we've just talked about the tip of the iceberg, right?
Yes, it's these conversations can go for days, but this conversation for something else or something more down the line.
For sure. I'll be ready for that.
Sounds good. Me too.
Cheers, man. Thank you so much.
Dude, thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
Have a good one.
Peace. You too. Bye, dude.
See you, man.